America in the 1940s was a nation gripped by war and by fear. After Japan's surprise attack on Pearl Harbor on December 7, 1941, everything changed. The U.S. declared war on Japan the next day, launching itself into World War II, but war fever turned inward. Suspicion and paranoia targeted a single group, Japanese Americans. Despite no evidence of wrongdoing, they were labeled enemy aliens. Politicians, newspapers, and radio hosts stoked the flames. They warned of fifth columnists and saboteurs hiding in plain sight. The West Coast, home to most Japanese Americans, became the epicenter of hysteria. Soon fear was law. On February 19, 1942, President Roosevelt signed Executive Order 9066. It gave the military power to remove anyone from designated military areas. The language was vague, but the intent was clear. The order specifically targeted people of Japanese descent. In the months that followed, more than 120,000 men, women, and children were forcibly removed. Roughly two-thirds were U.S. citizens born and raised in America. The other third were legal residents, denied citizenship by law. They were given just days to sell their homes, businesses, and belongings. Some locked their doors hoping to return. They never did. Others were forced to sell entire lives for pennies. The government called it relocation. But it wasn't relocation, it was incarceration. The first stop for many were assembly centers. These were makeshift detention sites often built at fairgrounds and racetracks. At California's Santa Anita Park, families were housed in horse stalls. The stench of animals lingered in the walls. Children slept where livestock once stood. Thousands spent weeks or months in these degrading conditions. Then, they were transferred again to isolated camps far inland. 10 camps. Scattered across desolate regions of the U.S., each camp was surrounded by barbed wire. Armed guards watched from towers. Searchlights scanned the desert at night. Fences divided the incarcerated from the rest of the country. The camps had names: Manzanar, Tule Lake, Minidoka, Heart Mountain. But their names can't capture the pain they held. Barracks were built quickly, thin wood, tar paper walls, no insulation. Families of 5, 6, even 10 people lived in a single room. They endured desert heat above 100 degrees, bitter winters below freezing. Dust storms blew through every crack and crevice. There was no privacy, communal toilets, showers, dining halls. They were prisoners, but had committed no crime. And still, they tried to rebuild their lives inside the wire. Schools were formed with volunteer teachers. Churches and temples rose from the dust. Newspapers were written, published, and distributed. Farms were built, gardens planted, baseball leagues formed. Even beauty pageants were held. The spirit of survival endured. But daily life was tinged with humiliation. Every movement was watched. Mail was censored. Radios were banned. Medical care was minimal. Food was rationed. Some tried to protest only to face punishment or solitary confinement. The government also asked for military volunteers from inside the camps. Thousands said yes. Others said no and were labeled disloyal. In 1943, a so-called loyalty questionnaire was distributed. 2 questions would divide families. Would you serve in the military? Would you swear unqualified allegiance to the U.S.? Many said yes, but others hesitated. How could they swear loyalty to a nation that locked them up? Those who answered no were sent to Tule Lake, a segregation center. Conditions there were even harsher. Meanwhile, those who did serve joined the 442nd Regimental Combat Team, composed entirely of Japanese Americans, became the most decorated unit of its size in U.S. history. They fought in Italy, France, and Germany. They rescued a surrounded battalion of Texas soldiers. Hundreds died in combat, all while their families were imprisoned at home. The irony was not lost on them. By 1944, the Supreme Court weighed in. In Korematsu v. United States, the court upheld the camps as legal. It was one of the darkest moments in American jurisprudence. But not everyone stayed silent. Some Americans spoke out. Activists, religious leaders, and civil rights groups protested. But the war drowned out their voices. It wasn't until the war ended in 1945 that the camps began to close. Inmates were released with $25 and a train ticket. There was no apology, no reparations. most returned home to nothing. Their homes had been looted, their businesses destroyed. They faced racism, threats, and vandalism. Some communities told them not to come back. Scars, emotional, financial, generational, would never fully heal. And for decades, America tried to forget. The camps were erased from textbooks. The survivors were told to stay silent, and many did. But silence is not the same as justice. The truth demanded to be told. In the 1960s and 70s, a new generation began asking questions. Why were our families imprisoned? Why did no one stop it? A movement for redress was born. It was led by survivors, activists, and their children. They demanded an investigation, an apology, reparations. Congress finally listened. In 1988, President Ronald Reagan signed the Civil Liberties Act. It admitted the camps were wrong, driven by race prejudice, war hysteria, and a failure of political leadership. But the apology came too late for many. To be continued.